because now is probably the most exciting time to be deploying capital behind new founders in terms of those folks who are building right now. But you got to have the stomach around doubling down in a period where you may see very significant on-paper losses, because a lot of companies the last couple of years are not truly at their paper value based on what they raised at.
This is not your typical venture podcast. We assume the listener or the viewer can Google simple things like stage, industry focus, average check size, etc. Guests and interviewers do consume alcoholic drinks during the taping of our show. So we do so responsibly, and we ask that everyone do so as well. So let's begin. I'm joined today by my producer, Ronald Morgan, who is guest hosting for a series of episodes we're calling Shots with a VC. We are excited to bring you a special episode. As an Upfront Summit sponsor, we've invited one of their most illustrious partners. The summit is starting this week, March 1st, and is hosted at the Academy of Motion Pictures in Beverly Hills, and we're incredibly excited. Our guest today has had a spectacular and multifaceted career. Born in Boston, Massachusetts, our guest attended the prestigious Milton School and became a track legend, catapulting him into Harvard, where he majored in econ and also set track records that are still held today. He rose up in banking and VC at firms like Insight Partners and Excel, and even had a stint as a CMO at a popular fashion brand, Revolve. His career at Upfront started in 2016, where he has led the way on the LA VC and startup ecosystem diversity efforts. You may know him from such deals as Oculus, Campaign Monitor, User Testing, AdRoll, Emergent VR, and Invoca. He's the most fashionable VC. Welcome, Kobie Fuller. Cheers.
What's going on? Cheers, cheers. Got my wine here ready, courtesy of you guys.
Great. Which wine are you drinking?
You guys sent me an Oakville cab from Chris Hamilton's cellars. So yeah, it's not bad. I didn't fully open up my corn into glass because I drink a full bottle of wine on a Friday afternoon before my 5 and 7-year-old are going to destroy me would not be good. So I a little bit. So good to be here.
Is Cab your favorite red wine, or do you have a preference?
I know it is. Cab, a good big body Cab is my favorite. So yes.
Okay, audience, noted. If you're going to send Kobie wine, he likes a big-bodied Cab. Excellent. So let's just start by telling us about growing up in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay. Where to begin on that front? I love Boston. I'm a huge Boston sports fan. So Celtics are doing incredibly well this season. Hopefully we have a much better ending to the year than we did last year. No shade to our Bay Area viewers, but not too much of a Warriors fan, especially after last season. But no, I'm growing up in Boston, and yeah, it was cold, not like Los Angeles, where able to enjoy mostly sunny weather 365 days of the year, outside of today where it's cold and rainy and quite annoying. But no, it was a good time, good being able to going back to some of what you alluded to in my early days, spent a lot of that in the world of athletics, running track, going around an oval constantly, because honestly, I wasn't coordinated enough to play team sports. I loved basketball, was my first passion, but I sucked at it and was not able to make my freshman high school team, but I was able to kind of carve my way through running, and that was a lot of what I did kind of early years growing up in Milton.
Tell us a little bit about your parents.
My mom grew up in the South, so from South Carolina. And my dad grew up in Boston, in the Northeast. And yeah, they did a really good job not screwing me up, I guess, and really helped distill some pretty significant values that I hold till this day. Just working hard and being really focused and committed to family, and small things around like every night just having dinner as a family and being able to tell stories of how your day went. I appreciate that to this day right now, having 2 little boys, one's 5, one's 7, and the importance of that sort of strong internal family unit. But yeah, no, they did a good job not screwing me up, I guess.
That's awesome.
Are your sons starting to do soccer and t-ball and various stuff like that?
Yeah, they're getting into sports, which I realize now that that's happened means I do not have a weekend anymore. And it's kind of creeped up on me. Whereas one day I was like, oh yeah, like get to the weekend, get to relax and all that. And suddenly I was like, wait a minute, it's Sunday morning. I have to wake up at what time to drive my kid to whatever random field to play baseball? And it's awesome being able to see them get into sports. But yeah, they're into tennis, they're into t-ball, they're into soccer. They're really fast, very much talented in track, but track's a very brutal sport where I'm trying not to get them so focused on doing that at such an early age. But my spice sense tells me they'll probably be very fast track runners as they grow up as well. So yeah, no, they're getting into sports.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and as a parent of two sons myself, these next 10 years go really, really quick. So enjoy every
Enjoy.
minute of it. So you did really well in high school track, and then you ended up going to the Ivy League and specifically Harvard. Obviously you got recruited by probably all the Ivies, I'm assuming, plus many other schools. What led you to Harvard?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I honestly was not focused on going to an Ivy League school. I had good grades. I ran really fast, was one of the fastest runners in the country. Started getting letters from schools, and it came to like my homeroom, and you're able to see people's reactions to the letters you're getting. And then I started getting Ivy League letters, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll start visiting some of these schools, and then I got into pretty much all of them, and then I saw people's reaction when they saw that I got into Harvard, and it was so shocking to me because it was like the day before I got into Harvard, it was like I was like what this dumb kid in the room, and the day after, suddenly like I'm the smartest kid in the room. I'm still the same dumbass kid in the room, but I realized like, oh, okay, like this actually has an impression on you. The fact that I got into the school, which to me was just like kind of made no sense. So I was like, okay, it's like right down the street, and I'm very much a mama's boy, and thought that okay, I can stay close to home. It's a pretty cool school, good campus, and apparently has great academics, and so I decided to go. So honestly, there wasn't a lot of thought that went into it, more than some of those few variables there. But no, it was a great experience, and yeah, this wasn't one of those things that I was thinking about trying to do for my entire sort of middle school and high school career. Where I feel like right now, people think about how to plot their way into Harvard at like I don't know at inception, which to me is just sort of crazy.
So, what I know that, a lot of people might say, oh, this guy has a charmed life. But I'm sure you dealt with adversity growing up. Do you want to talk about that?
Adversity growing up. Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know. I mean, like being Black in America comes with its natural adversity that you get exposed to in terms of the racism that you see, the racism that you have to deal with, whether you're a young kid in elementary school and the bias they have against your capabilities to people assuming that the only reason why you got into Harvard is because you're fast, which contrary to popular belief, there's other reasons why they admit students. So for me, like a lot of adversity that I've had to deal with, still have to deal with, has to go with the color of my skin and having to deal with just the reality that being Black in America is there's issues that we're still dealing with as a country that clearly were exposed during 2020 with George Floyd. And yeah, like that's something that is definitely been adversity I've had to deal with growing up and still have to deal with this to this day. So, but that's just unfortunately the reality is what the dynamic is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we really admire you for we know that Harvard doesn't accept idiots. You actually have to have a high GPA to get into Harvard, even if you're an athlete. So I'm sure that you weren't the dumbest guy in the room, like you said when you were saying that earlier, because I know for a fact you have to have a high GPA.
What the Ivies have is something called an academic index or an AI number. that you have to hit. And so they take all of your test scores and your GPA and your exams, and they dump it all in and they spit out this number. And then every team and every department has to hit that. So, I mean, Kobie could be the fastest runner in the entire world, but if he didn't have good grades and a high academic, it wouldn't matter. Harvard could not get him.
There was a really, really, really smart guy though my recruiting year where they kind of off balance me as being the idiot coming in. I'm joking. Like, wait a minute, we got this brilliant guy, so we can admit this moron.
That's how it works.
That's funny. That's funny. But I think the sports is a really interesting angle. Bree and I know, and as I'm sure you as well know, a lot of folks in the investment community that were former athletes and ran track in college or played baseball or whatnot. Talk a little bit about how your participation in athletics, even going back to a young kid up through obviously your teens and college, and even I know you ran some stuff even post college, how that has affected you or impacted you as an investor, and talk a little bit about that if you will.
Yeah, so the way I look about my time growing up, running track through high school, collegiate, post-collegiate, success was really determined by what I put into it. So if I wasn't off season doing the necessary base training, work in the weight room to get stronger, committed during the year to be putting in 110% when I am training around the oval, not being distracted by off-field behavior that can impede success, whether that's going out partying or just being an idiot. Like, I realize, like, it's those behaviors, it's those actions, it's that dedication, it's that commitment, it's that discipline that allows you to actually achieve any sort of outcome or any sort of greatness you want to achieve in life. And for me, it was very clear with regards to track, because track relative to a lot of other sports is very much correlated to what you put into it is what you get out of it. There's no subjective nature to the sport. There's no real judgment. You're at the mercy of as it relates to referees or even potentially other teammates outside of a relay race where they're going to help help sort of dictate your success. And so spending so much of my athletic career seeing that and witnessing that, the corollary with regards to how that translates into the professional world, I mean, it's almost like a perfect translation, especially what I consider the world of venture capital and going into an entry-level job at Insight, where it was a boiler room. It was cold calling. It was reaching out to software CEOs that many times didn't want to get a call from a kid who just graduated from college. I probably didn't know much about their business. And for me, I just put as much into it as I could to get good outcomes, which at that point, and it was for probably the first 10 years of my career, making 100 plus cold outbounds per week in, week out, trying to source and find the best software companies possible, which I was lucky enough to find a few that went on to do quite well. But for me, it was just that exercise of putting in incredibly hard work and putting in the reps. That is exactly what I did in a track world. So to me, it very much felt like, and it is a sport. It is a sport that I very much enjoy participating in, that is both effort, but also it's mindset as well. It's something where it's how you mentally approach the job, and that dictates success, which very much an athletics mindset has a deep connection as well with how you approach your performance on the field. Very much will dictate success. So the two are very, very closely related. Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. And gosh, even before you had your first investing role at Insight, you started off in investment banking. That I know is not a fun slog either.
Well, I can tell you how fun it was, because I took a job with, at the time, pretty well-known tech bank called Robertson Stephens.
Robbie Stevens.
On my second day is when Robbie Stevens got shut down. So my entry into the work world was flying out to San Francisco for what was going to be a month of training. I was working in the Boston office theoretically, to only be met with on my second day of training a individual coming into the training room saying, "So 5 minutes ago, the firm's been shut down. Grab your stuff, get out of here. Come back on Monday morning. You'll get sort of directions of what's happening." So I'm like, okay, like this is interesting. Like it's a nice welcome to the work world. And fortunate enough, I was able to find a job at the parent company Fleet Boston Financial a couple of weeks later, and I was doing debt capital markets work, but not really what I wanted to get into. Tech banking was what I was excited to do, but I found the next 9 months of my life working on debt facilities for leveraged buyouts of canned fish companies and exit bankruptcy financings for the likes of large retailers like Kmart, where financer is getting kidnapped during the process, which is just like, I was like, what the hell is going on right now? So my first year of professional work in the iBanking sort of introduction to was quite interesting. But I was fortunate enough to be able to then transition into a role.
I guess was the mindset was, I'll do this for a year, maybe two, and then pivot into VC or PE, or see how long I can take this.
Yeah, no, I wanted to go into VC or VC straight out of school. That was really my focus. So I did a startup with a couple of buddies in college that we raised some venture financing for during the 99-2000 timeframe. We could have sold it for a bunch of money, but we didn't because we're dumb kids. But it was through trying to raise capital for that business that I realized, like, wait a minute, there's this job where people can go around meeting companies and then invest in the ones that they like the most and then work with them to help build something great. Like, that sounds a lot interesting. And we're also on our really best behavior to try to get that person's money. Like, he seems really kind of important. So I fell in love with this whole idea of venture capital by being on the other side of the table in college. And I reached out proactively to every Boston-based VC trying to get a job straight out of school, but I only got like 2 replies back, like physical written letters, and both of them are just like, get some experience, kid. Like, we don't hire people out of school. So I just did the iBanking route because it was what was told to me is that stepping stone to get into venture, where honestly there's no real typical path to get into venture to begin with. So that was the journey during the 2002 timeframe where I graduated from school.
That's super. And then you ended up at from Insight, and then you ended up at Excel, I think, and you had another company in between there.
No, I helped start a fund called OpenView that is still going.
That's right.
So we founded a firm. So OpenView, if people have heard the name before, significant investor in businesses like Datadog and Calendly, and a few of us spun out of Insight and raised OpenView, where our fund 1 was over $100 million. Fund 2 was a little bit larger than that. So I actually wasn't looking to leave the world of venture and actually leave the venture fund that I helped start. It was only out of opportunity to be an operator and roll up my sleeves, move to LA, and be CMO of Revolve, which that came about because I was not good enough at my job to convince the founders to take my money, but they were good enough to convince me to be an operator. So I was at Revolve for a couple of years, helping build that machine up, which was crazy. But that was kind of the two stops before heading back to venture and joining Excel.
Okay, super. Thank you for that. Tell us about that. Tell us about that more. That's absolutely fascinating.
Revolve. We want to hear about Revolve and your interest in fashion. We want to know more.
Yeah. So Revolve came about initially when I was at Insight. I realized that e-commerce was a category that would be very exciting to deploy capital behind. And the Revolve founders were hyper efficient in being able to sell. The time was mainly denim, because you couldn't really find much denim online. And so Revolve was founded for like 2004. So it's been around for a long time. And they were just really good at tapping into a market for denim where the keywords to bid against for citizens humanity, for all mankind alike, were like pennies, but people were able to like buy $200 jeans. So they bootstrapped the business to a decent size revenue run rate. They came on my radar as an analyst at Insight, and then I pretty much stopped them into trying to take capital. Went out, did an aggressive pitch around why we could be a good partner, and they just mined us for information. They're like, "We're good. We're bootstrapping this. We don't need your money." And then we became really good friends. So it was probably a 7-year period where then I left Insight, started OpenView, but we came still really close. Where along the way, I continued investing in a lot of MarTech. So I had this perspective, theoretical perspective on how technology would play a key part for how you would be able to acquire and retain customers over time. So like companies like ExactTarget that Salesforce acquired for a big chunk of change and others. And then I was telling them how much I thought they were doing it wrong with Revolve because they were taking advantage of all this advanced technology. And I could see from their website, which just looked like trash in my opinion. So they were just like, "You think you're so good, you can just move to LA to be the CMO." And so my wife works in fashion, and she was just like, wait a minute, I'm the fashion person. Like, why do you think you know anything about fashion? And I'm like, well, these guys think that I do, and I could be the CMO of what I thought was like an equal split between men's and women's clothes. So we moved to LA, and then I find out pretty much like on my first days, there's like, "Oh no, it's like 98% women's clothes. Like we don't think about men's too much for you right now." I'm like, "Oh, so I'm like Al Bundy, just like hawking like women's shoes, and like this is my job." So I had to kind of go in and really educate myself deeply on the customer because it was more than just like the quantitative nature of being able to understand consumer behavior to drive conversions. Like I had to understand really the qualitative sort of like back end, like what motivated women to buy the items that they did within contemporary and luxury. So I just like went full on in where I got to know so much about women's fashions and brands in a way where I could walk down the street and see like type of shoe a woman was wearing, know definitely who the designer was, probably what year it was from, and whether they bought it on full price or discount because of the style, whether it was actually something that was in trend or not. So like I had to know the merchandise at least as good as the buyers because I was marketing the merchandise at scale. And Revolve at that time had like 600 or 700 brands. So for me, it was this like combination of this huge data problem as well as this emotional connection to drive this experience with consumers that I realized really moving the needle on further went beyond more just like the paid marketing and the nuts and bolts of just what you see in digital advertising, but really going deep on influencers. So that time we started working more with bloggers, they call them more then, versus now Instagram influencers. But then started going heavy on that, and we weren't paying any of these influencers any money as well. So it's kind of crazy the types of influencers we were working with, not paying them any money, sending them to Coachella, dressing them, and then through Revolve's like first Rager in Coachella, like 3 weeks notice. I thought that'd be interesting to actually like show the experience in a different type of manner and really kind of own that by taking over a hotel and just throwing a Rager party, which was incredibly successful. Until I just got really burnt out after 2 years, and I was just like, no, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. But was able to get the company to a couple $100 million run rate in like under 2 years from like I think like a $30 million run rate where I started. And it was it was exciting. It was rewarding, and definitely that experience made me a better investor in terms of understanding how to actually operationally scale things, especially from that marketing perspective. But honestly, I'm more of like a nerd sports like athlete guy and not a fashion guy, but I could be a chameleon, I guess. But it was a really good couple of years of my career that I'm forever grateful for. And the Revolve guys are still very close friends.
And interestingly enough, a lot of top athletes all have fashion brands and obviously shoe lines and all that other stuff. So there's a real melding of those two worlds coming together anyway.
Yeah.
So your wife has a line, is that correct?
Yes, kids clothing brand called Miles and Milan, named after our niece and nephew back in Boston. So yeah.
That is so cute. And do you want to tell us your meet cute, how you guys met?
Yeah, we met in initially, we've been dating since like high school. So so we met like, I don't know, first I met probably in middle school, but we started dating towards the end of high school. So we've been together now, it'll be 25 years this June. So 1998, which is crazy. So time flies. So yeah, goes back.
So you've known her longer in your life than you haven't known her.
Oh yeah. Exactly. So it's pretty crazy. So
that's awesome.
Good. That's good.
So you were an early investor in Oculus.
Yep.
I'd love to hear how you were sold on the vision.
Yeah. Well, I guess the way I would answer that, it was I wasn't sold enough on the vision because I could have joined as CMO, but instead I decided to excel and invest in Oculus. So, so I really wasn't sold on the vision so much. But no, I mean, how it happened is like Brendan was someone I've known from a prior life. He had a company called Scaleform that he sold to Autodesk that I almost invested in. And then we both moved to LA around the same time. For me going for Revolve, he went for GreenCow, which was a company that he sold to Sony. And then he was telling me right after he's finishing up GreenCow that he's working on his VR thing, Stay Close. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about, Brendan? VR, is that even real? And then I saw like a early prototype and was in this conference room with like him and Palmer Luckey, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. So this is all like pre like John Carmack and stuff too. And then I was basically at the point where we're talking about me joining, and then same time I was talking to the folks at Excel, and I realized that my long-term passion was more in the world of venture than it was being an operator, because I was still at Revolve at the time and I was thinking about whether I'd change things up or not. And then so I decided, you go to the Bay Area, go back to investing, join Excel, and that gave them a few pennies. And then it was stupid. So what I should have done was join Oculus, because it got acquired a year later for a few $billion, and then gone to Excel, and that would have been just like a 1 year hiatus or so. So I'm not that smart at everything, but that's kind of how that transpired, and I'm not going to complain.
So everyone's always like, "Oh, I missed this deal." You didn't miss a deal. You missed the wrong deal. You missed like getting the job opportunity. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean, everything happens for a reason. So I can do kind of chuckle at that, but yeah, no, it's all worked out, and it's interesting to see how that technology's evolved as well.
I was just curious what you envision as the future of the metaverse.
Yeah, interesting. So, full future of metaverse, this is a loaded question. But I guess where I'm most excited in regards to immersive technology is what it could do for education. I do feel like the way kids should learn, or anyone should learn, if you can do it in an immersive setting, but instead of like textbooks. Like there's certain things that you should experience firsthand that a textbook is not very efficient at doing, or vocational skills, or just different sort of like training that you could go in where, say, if you have the ability to learn how to operate some expensive piece of, I don't know, medical equipment or construction equipment, like it's probably a lot more efficient to hop in a virtual setting and do that in VR and be able to train more people at scale. And then I think what people will be willing to pay to actually go through someone's training experiences will be quite considerable, because access to knowledge is highly sought after, and people will pay materially for, as I'm coming to find out with these kids in school. But for me, I feel like VR education is incredibly exciting. And then fast forward probably more like 10 years in the future, where, or maybe longer than that, but once AR becomes more pervasive, I think we're going to be living in this kind of mixed reality universe where having a visual overlay on society will hopefully enhance things for the better. I'm hoping it also doesn't make us weird human beings as well in terms of information overload, but I feel like leveraged the right way, it's just going to change the way we are interfacing with computers and technology, and we'll probably not be using screens at all in a world like that, because screens become obsolete when you can be able to create any sort of like digital layer anywhere in space. So I think it's very, very exciting future we're heading into, and hopefully the computers don't destroy us along the way.
Are there any specific examples you want to share with us that have just kind of been mind-blowing to you in the VR space?
Well, I hate plugging some of my own companies, but I do feel like my portfolio company, The Wave, which I led the seed round on, is a pretty fun, exciting business where they're creating this ability for you to hop in a VR venue. And they did a concert earlier this year on Pico, which is owned by ByteDance, where you were able to be in a Calvin Harris concert, where Calvin Harris was performing and you're there with other people in VR, while that same experience was also being broadcast live on TikTok. So people watching TikTok could also see the performance and see the people in VR actually kind of in the venue, with their kind of like glow sticks and all sorts of like crazy different immersive cool experiences they crafted for that. But it created this this cool, fun mechanism by which you could experience Calvin Harris, but experiencing him in a way where it was more than just like watching him in like a Vegas club, but it's reimagining how it would be with some of these advanced, amazing sort of ways in which VR is able to create a level of immersion and connectivity with the artist. And it's pretty amazing where that technology is going to go and what the Wave is doing in terms of bringing people together in these immersive environments and doing it through the common connection of music and entertainment, which is why many people come together in real life. So that one I'm super excited for. I'm also really excited.
Ren's in the Wave right now.
That I am. So, I'm in the Wave.
Oh yeah, you are in the Wave. Clearly, how did I miss that? So yeah, I mean that's probably what I'm most excited about. But honestly, there needs to be more creatives and developers building for VR right now. There's just not enough, and I feel like you're probably going to see more of that happen once headset sales increase even further. Even though the Quest 2 has helped that, but also I think whenever Apple releases their device, which I think people are cautiously optimistic will have a boost to the category as well, will be great. But also the ByteDance Pico will be, I think, also another accelerator because it's a really good device and they're going to be aggressively coming after the market too.
I'm going to shamelessly plug Burkland client trip. We love that.
Well, yes.
Yeah, we love it. That was what blew my mind when I did that app for the first time. And I realized like, oh, this is a daily use case.
Yes.
And then I also learned how to DJ. Like you were saying, it's educational and you're sitting there with a DJ on their equipment. And
on Tribe?
It's so, yes, it was so cool.
Very cool. Tribe is a very cool example of being able to learn a skill like DJing where you're not going to buy all that DJ home. It's like, oh, I put on a headset and now I have a full-on DJ set and I'm learning from someone in this synchronous real-time environment, and like it's amazing. It's a really
so cool. Yeah, you now have this expensive equipment in a digital space and you can actually learn hands-on how to use it. That blew my mind.
Yeah. Trip's a really good example though, because that's the way in which you hop in this immersive environment and it's optimized towards making you feel calmer and it's almost like a VR meditation experience where the power of immersion, some of the aspects of binaural beats and technology, they're able to actually create a physical response in your brain that can simulate also taking a real drug, I think is incredibly interesting and exciting in a way that could actually go into some like crazy sort of spaces. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Neon Trip.
Yeah, we saw her last year at Upfront too. We ran into her. Yeah, she's a lot of fun. So we haven't talked about your journey then down from Excel to Upfront. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I co-invested with Upfront in 2 companies, and then I found myself honestly probably spending more time with my partner Mark than I was my partners at Excel, and then I was finding myself also speaking at, I think at the time it was probably every Upfront Summit that they had, where I felt like I was like more probably part of the Upfront crew. And then I realized, like, wait a minute, like I really like this team. I like the types of companies they're investing in. I like the culture. I really like the environment that LA brings and the diversity that it could really kind of pull me into in terms of just creatives and an experience layer that I think is going to matter even more in the future with regards to both consumer and enterprise applications, where it was a logical transition to move from Silicon Valley to LA and join Upfront. So it was, it was just something that kind of naturally, organically happened.
And it's, the LA ecosystem there with a very rapidly growing startup scene and obviously all the investment community and what, that's completely different than certain Silicon Valley or Austin or some of the other parts around the country. What do you like about it? What do you think? Where are some things that could be fixed or do better, and what's really cool to in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, what I love about it, it's just the level of kind of just creativity and more diverse types of founders that you can come across that may have shifted from other industries like entertainment, fashion, into technology. For instance, one of my good friends is an individual by the name of Omar Johnson, who was formerly CMO of Beats by Dre and was there through the acquisition to Apple. And then he's now decided that he wants to build a software company in the marketing automation space. And he's applying a different type of perspective that he's learned from his experience at Nike and Beats around working with influencers and brands to rethink how enterprise software should operate at the intersection of brands, influencers, and audience, where that type of perspective and mindset you wouldn't find from someone in Silicon Valley because they haven't been living in that world for most of their professional careers. So it's being able to find those types of individuals that have that different lens, perspective, and walk of life that they're trying to leverage technology to automate in a different way that excites me a lot.
So what I love about LA is that you have all these content creators and you have a lot of entertainment. And then obviously San Francisco has technology. And what I love about Upfront Summit is that you guys bring the two together in just a magical way. And I think that's what everybody loves about it. And it's because, you know, you've got these people putting content on technology. So the two really do work together. I'd love to hear your opinion on just what celebrity investing trends there are, because now they're not just in the content creation space, they're in the investment space.
Yes. So you're saying celebrities investing in companies?
Celebrities and being LPs as well. What are some of the trends you've noticed, and where do they like to put their money, and
yeah, I mean, they're doing it more, is all I'd say. Maybe they're going to be doing it less given the compression in valuations and carnage I expect us to see over the next 12 to 18 months, because it's going to happen and it's starting to happen. So yeah, there was a period of time where you saw a lot of acceleration in lots of different people getting into the venture asset class because they saw the value or our perceived value that was actually being created in front of their eyes. And how is that going to transpire over the next 12 months and 18 months? And will some of these non-traditional investors continue to pour capital into the asset class? I think only time will tell around that, because you're going to see, I think, a significant amount of companies that are going to have to struggle through raising the next round of capital. They have significant down rounds, and there may be terms that then become punitive on prior rounds that make it difficult for those folks, and what that results in terms of long-term trends that non-traditional sort of like venture starts exhibiting. Like, I don't know, but like, I think we're at a weird point in time here right now where we're going to start seeing a transition around how some of those deals that occurred over the last couple of years, where you saw a lot of celebrity investors come into play, and even non-celebrity investors, people that just saw that this was a really exciting asset class, realize that, like, yeah, venture is very, very hard. Like, I've heard people many times say, I'm going to retire and become a VC. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that my job's retirement. Like, this stuff is hard. So I think that people will realize, like, venture is a very, 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 very tough industry. And the next couple of years for our industry are going to be very, 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 very tough. And it's those that actually realize that managing through some of these downturns, the cyclical nature that we see of the industry, is something you have to deal with. And if they have a stomach for it, I think they're going to do incredibly well over the kind of the long term, because now is probably the most exciting time to be deploying capital behind new founders in terms of those folks who are building right now. But you got to have the stomach around doubling down in a period where you may see very significant on paper losses, because a lot of companies the last couple of years are not truly at their paper value based on what they've raised at.
We need good blackjack players. And I'm so confused, Kobie, because I thought you were semi-retired. You're not?
Like, yeah, this is like ventures. Yeah, I'm retired. This is nothing. So
oh, that's crazy. So in terms of what value do you think celebrities have brought to some of these deals?
Yeah, I think the ones that actually are strategic in nature in terms of they're not just writing a check, but they actually want to lend their influence, I think is where there's help. I think there's other folks also outside of their influence behind the scenes are just incredibly smart around advising in the areas of could be go to market or other facets because like there's just yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways in which they can be valuable to the cap table and to the founder and to the CEO. So I think it depends, honestly, on the celebrity and what makes them so so uniquely just successful and have an edge in what's propelled them in their outside of the investing career that they know how to translate that to a tech founder that's building a company. So I think it varies very much from celebrity to celebrity, but those I find that actually like lean into actually helping and trying to bring their superpower to those few companies where they can actually translate and be able to help bring that superpower to the table is what matters a lot. So I think it just depends.
Good advice. So I do want to ask a question that I ask many of our guests, kind of a dorky question, but as a former CMO who also loves SaaS, what is your favorite metric?
Favorite metric? What if I won? What is my favorite? I don't have a favorite metric.
It's the one you're always looking at, the one
that
that like
question. Sorry. I know.
such a dorky question. Oh man, the Silicon Valley ones, they know how to answer it. Come on, Harvard, give it to me.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's why I said like, oh, what's the magic number? What's your CAC payback? Like,
exactly, right?
What's your? Yeah, no, I don't. Honestly, I do not have a favorite metric. I have a list of metrics that I look at to get a sense of how a business is doing because there's not like one silver bullet to actually help dictate how something's doing or not. My metric that I'm focusing on a lot more these days is cash burn and cash balance. So I'm just like, how long are you going to stay alive?
Exactly. What's that runway?
And so for me, runway is probably like, it's not my favorite, but it's the one I'm overly focused on the most. But
great. Hey, maybe that's the way I should start phrasing it. What metric are you focused on right now? That's a better way of questioning it or phrasing the question versus favorite metric, which sounds kind of like you have a favorite metric. Friend, note, we need to change that question. Kobie just totally like called out my dorky question.
Yeah, you called it dorky yourself. So
I did, because it's like, I think you helped me reword it so that it's better. It's better. Like I want it to be, because like you said, it's situational, right? It's
situational. Like what folks know the most. And right now, so much of the game right now is just like staying alive and making it through this current time period. So when that things open up a little bit more, consumer spending increasing and all that kind of stuff, where then you're like, okay, like we're able to really go hard after this opportunity. And you want to have a strong balance sheet at that point and not, and ideally also be alive, to be there to even actually witness that moment where things are actually working. So runway matters, because if you're not operating and you're dead, like nothing else matters.
Fair enough. I think that's what most founders should be focused on right now, is really managing their burn and making sure that they can stay alive. We've even written a recent article on down rounds, just because, hey, it's coming up. Everyone's got to be aware of it and start thinking about it. So I think you're spot on. I've also noticed you've been, and this is kind of moving back into the LA scene, and I've noticed you've really affected and helped lead an effort in LA to really change diversity. You were able to bring Jim Lowry on as an advisor to Upfront. You and founders, but it also kind of takes power and money. So I was wondering if you could give some practical advice to our audience on what they can do on a daily basis, or what little small changes they can make to make an impact in changing the community to reflect more diverse voices.
Yeah, well, answering that question made from the strict lens of venture and company building, I think lots of people get confused and think like, oh, like I'm going to invest in Black founders because like I should, and it's like the right thing to do. So I'm going to take a few meetings and like but like that's like the wrong way to be thinking about it. Like investing in diverse founders, it's not only like the right thing to do, but it's actually like an amazing economic opportunity where, like, dare I say, you can actually drive material, top tier returns to your LPs. So to think that it's like mutually exclusive, like I'm gonna have a fund that's gonna perform well, but like, oh, but I can't invest in black market, like it's the dumbest thing ever. So for me, it's just like one and the same. So the more people realize like this is an economic opportunity, as well as like, yeah, this is also something that like you should be doing, because like if you're totally biased against and missing this founder community that is also a disadvantage with regards to, as a broad scale, the wealth that they have relative to their non-black counterparts from this like a societal perspective. Like, yeah, you're kind of not doing what you should think. You're not doing what you should be doing. So for me, I just think about it. It's like it's actually a good economic opportunity to be running after, and it's also like the right thing to do. And to go about doing that is just like, yeah, if you just only are fishing within your own network that you've naturally crafted over time of people that look like yourself, you should probably get out of that network and start expanding your network into other pockets of founders and communities where you can actually diversify deal flow and diversify the types of businesses that you should be backing and thinking about. And so that's why I also was inspired to create Valence, was a platform to be able to democratize access to this community, but more importantly is putting the community first by allowing them to have access to each other, because it also is hard as a black professional to be able to find each other in a efficient manner to build with one another. So a lot of it honestly just goes down into just the network and tapping into a network that's naturally outside of the one that you've built over time, and creating diversity within it, and opportunities will follow. And I fundamentally believe that investing in the black community is something that will drive top tier returns.
I completely agree. How can someone join Valence if they're watching today and they want to join that community?
Go to valence.community, and I think there's just a join button. It's very simple.
We're going to put the link in the podcast on all of our channels so that everyone has access to it and can join.
I think if it goes back to, if you just continue going to like all of the people you know within your immediate and media network that just look exactly like you, then you're not getting potentially a diversity of thought and perspective. So going out and being very proactive into tapping into other diverse communities on all aspects, from race, gender, socioeconomic, whatever it may be. It's like industry, like all those things, like you should be thinking about as you're going out trying to build out your teams, whether it be from the C-suite down to individual contributors. And I think one of the things that many people also like don't prioritize or realize, like if you don't really prioritize diversity in your C-suite and your board, like that's also has a pretty negative impact on your ability to then have diversity trickle down to the rest of the organization. And you are able to also leverage it as an accelerant, because if you have a diverse board, diverse C-suite, then you tap into those diverse networks that allows for the company itself to reflect a natural diversity. So I think lots of times founders don't realize that, like, or just they kick the can down the road around thinking through diversity from that perspective. And they also don't put a KPI against it as well and measure it. Like, we should be having diversity and holding ourselves accountable towards some of the diversity. So yeah.
I appreciate that. I know we're coming upon our time here. We want to get into Upfront Summit 2023. What can we expect?
A lot of craziness. No, it's exciting. We put a lot of work behind it, and it's a full team effort over here. So we don't like to take ourselves too seriously, but at the same time, we do, because for us, it's one where we like to have topics of conversation that expand well beyond just the whole world of venture investing and company building, but conversations that in past summits have gone through prison reform to Ukraine to all sorts of issues with regards to, and we talk about like the combating the racial wealth gap, to you name it. And you're gonna expect a lot of the same this year. We're gonna have some conversations around climate, and it's gonna be fun. I mean, it's gonna be a fun, exciting, crazy. Well, for us, it's 3 days because we have our annual meeting before the next set of 2 days, which are VC LP networking on day 1, and then day 2, the full-on fair. So it's going to be a great time at the Academy and Motion Picture Museum.
So a bit of a slow week, in other words, right?
Just a little bit, yeah. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, we love coming down and participating, and Bree and I have been going for a number of years, and it's always great to see a lot of old dear friends, and we always come away with a lot of very soon to be new dear friends. So,
well, this year I'll be having a conversation with Haley Bieber, so maybe I'll try to get your son on Zoom with her.
Yeah, you know what I like about it is you've got generations of women this year. Haley Bieber's hitting our Gen Z. You've got Jennifer Garner hitting kind of my generation, and we've got Jamie Lee Curtis. So I feel like you guys have really got all the generations of women covered, which is awesome.
Yeah, we try.
I'm excited.
We got to the Kobie, we've had another bag or another package shipped down to you. Do you have that anywhere nearby?
Oh, I know. I saw a box come in yesterday. I didn't open it up yet. I think it's
Go find it.
Right now?
Yeah, you got to open it. That's the last segment.
Oh, dude, okay. Oh.
Here we go. That is it. Beautiful. Look at that.
Am I instructed not to open it?
No, open it now. Go ahead.
You just send presents and you just leave it under the Christmas tree.
All right, I'm gonna open it up now. All right, what do we got in here?
And by the way, we're gonna bring you another gift at Upfront, but I need to confirm something first, and then you can post it on LinkedIn.
Wow, what is it?
Classic. The vest.
Race with the VC. Amazing.
Like, we know that's probably your only Patagonia vest that you have, right? So
it actually is.
He needs like a John Legend jacket, something with like some bling and flowers.
Thank you. That was great. This is awesome. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate it. We always end our Drinks with a VC with a toast to anyone of your choosing. Could be family, could be startups, could be LPs, anyone you want. And
I'm going to toast everyone watching because who else would I toast? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone watching. Hopefully we'll see you at the summit.
Yes. Hopefully, no, we have capacity.
Good point. Live stream. We should mention right now, we will put it in all of our stuff. If live stream the summit, it is amazing. Pick the Kobie, see what Kobie's going to say to Haley Bieber. Will Justin be there?
I don't know.
We'll see.
All right.
Catch full episodes of Drinks with a VC on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts, and on YouTube for video. Be sure to subscribe for the latest episode drops.